I'm Tara Mergener. Tonight on EWTN News Nightly.
Mr. Lyons, will you resign from ICE?
No, sir, I won't.
Why not?
Because, sir, that child that you're showing right there, the men and women of ICE took care of him when his father abandoned him and ran from law enforcement.
Democrats claim ICE is an agency reckless and out of control. I'm Eric Rosales. The latest on a hearing that had top immigration authorities in the hot seats.
President Trump and Vice President Vance are pushing for peace at home and abroad. Their plans to bring an end to a number of wars. As violence and hardship grip Christians in the Middle East, EWTN News sits down with the Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem to talk about where he sees hope and the light of Christ. Plus, news from the Vatican, the special announcement Pope Leo made today about a beloved event. These stories and more tonight.
From EWTN, the Global Catholic Network, this is EWTN News Nightly.
And thank you for being with us on the Feast of St. Scholastica, our top story tonight. The leaders of three major immigration agencies face tough questions from the House Homeland Security Committee. It marked ICE officials' first appearance before Congress since the national outcry over the fatal shootings of two U.S. citizens in Minnesota. Capitol Hill correspondent Eric Rosales saw it unfold and joins us with the latest. Eric, I am sure there were fireworks.
Oh, definitely fireworks. An understatement there, Tara. Good evening to you. Both sides claim that they want to find solutions on how to handle ICE arrests in the future, but the hearing quickly turned into a blame game by Democrats who tried to demonize ICE. The hearing comes just before DHS funding is set to expire this Friday, and Democrats led by Ranking Member Congressman Benny Thompson claimed that the ICE shooting victims were innocent bystanders and even led a moment of silence during the hearing, and claim that ICE needs to be completely overhauled.
They are reckless, creating chaos in our communities, terrorizing adults and children alike, and undermining our moral authority as a nation of liberty and rule of law.
The head of ICE says if officials with sanctuary cities would only work with them, there would be a lot less violence. Targeted law enforcement operations would take place inside local jails to pick up illegals and not on city streets. And notes an 8,000% increase in threats of violence to ICE officers and a huge jump in assaults.
One officer in Minnesota had his finger bitten off by a protester, egged on by elected officials characterizing our officers as the Gestapo of secret police. The families of ICE personnel have been made to feel unsafe in their homes.
Democrats used the hearing to highlight the ICE-involved shootings that killed two people.
Mr. Lyons, will you apologize to the family of Renee Good for being called a domestic terrorist by the president and his leadership?
No, sir.
Why not?
Sir, I welcome the opportunity to speak to the family in private, but I'm not going to comment on any active investigation.
Do you believe President Trump will pardon you? Because, go ahead.
I'm not going to speak on behalf of President Trump, but I'll tell you, I signed up for this job to protect America, and I'm very proud of the service that I provide, and I don't need a pardon from anybody.
ICE officials say out of the 13,000 ICE field agents, only around 3,000 have body cameras, but officials promise that number will increase thanks to funding passed by Republicans last year. ICE says they're working hard to keep America safer.
Sir, if you look at what ICE has done, if you look at the amount of, as I said earlier, the amount of known and suspected terrorists that we removed from the country, we arrested 1,477 this year and removed 1,480. Just that impact alone, along with the 7,800 gang members, makes a significant impact on public safety and national security.
It is important to remember that DHS recently got about $75 billion through the One Big Beautiful Bill last year for its immigration operations. So ICE operations is not in danger of stopping due to a DHS shutdown, but other agencies such as FEMA, TSA, and even the Coast Guard, they will be impacted. At the Capitol, Eric Rosales, EWTN News Nightly.
Eric, thank you. Joining us now is Andrew Arthur, resident fellow in law and policy at the Center for Immigration Studies. He also served 8 years as an immigration judge at New York Immigration Court in York, Pennsylvania. Art, thank you for joining us. The goal of today's hearing was to give the American people the ability to hear directly from the leaders that enforce our nation's immigration laws. That was accomplished?
Yeah, it definitely was. We heard a lot of testimony. We heard a lot of, back and forth. We also heard a lot of pontificating. coming from the rostrum at the House Homeland Security Committee today. But there were a lot of, if you sorted through the, 3 hours and 30 minutes of testimony, you actually, got to a lot of key points about the impact of sanctuary laws on ICE operations, on what ICE has done to remove criminals from the United States, and on the threats that ICE officers are facing, thanks in large part to a lot of the rhetoric that unfortunately was replicated today. So, yeah, I mean, it was a good hearing. It was a good airing. More important questions could have been asked. They weren't, but that doesn't really take away from the hearing itself.
Well, as we said, you served as an immigration judge for many years. From your point of view, how do you see ICE enforcement right now? And have some of their tactics, in your opinion, gone too far or not?
Well, I think that, what we have seen in recent weeks, in the last couple weeks, ever since the president sent border czar Tom Homan, is a little bit closer to what, has traditionally been immigration enforcement. Mr. Homan went to Minneapolis to seek the cooperation of a state and, city governments that have been reluctant, if not hostile, to immigration enforcement. And he's been able to do that. He's brought the temperature down. We now have, ICE going to jails and prisons to pick up criminals. We're seeing less activity on the street. The protests continue, but, with respect to the enforcement itself, the temperature has definitely gone down. And I think that, Mr. Homan, with his experience, is, going to, return to a more traditional manner of enforcement.
So if a DHS shutdown actually happens, ICE will still be able to operate. So what do Democrats hope to achieve?
I think that much of this, like unfortunately a good part of the hearing today, is political theater. They want to paint immigration and customs enforcement officers as fascists, a term that actually did come up today. They want to show all immigration enforcement is illegitimate. They want to, push toward what's called comprehensive reform, or what most people know as amnesty. But they want to, first and foremost, they want to take away what has been Donald Trump's best issue, certainly the 2024 elections, and turn it into a bad issue for Republicans in the midterms. Whether they accomplish that by shutting down the government remains to be seen.
A lot of moving parts. Meantime, Republicans blame state officials in Minnesota of hampering ICE operations. Is that a justified view?
Yeah, it definitely is. And in fact, 2 weeks after President Trump took office and a week after Congress passed the Laken-Riley Act, Keith Ellison, who's the Attorney General of Minnesota, issued an opinion that told all 87 sheriffs in Minnesota that they couldn't hold criminals over for ICE to pick them up. That was a huge impediment to immigration operations there. There are a lot of criminals who have been residing there, who were released into the streets that ICE is attempting to get. Couple that with the rhetoric that's gone on, and every time a white van rolls down the street or a vehicle without a state plates, rides by, and a lot of people are attempting to impede the movement of that vehicle, and certainly when they see ICE operations, to impede that as well. So it's had a huge impact. There's a reason, Tara, that you're not seeing protests like this in Texas and Florida, Georgia, Tennessee, Oklahoma, because those places are actually cooperating to get the criminals out of their prisons into ICE custody. We're not seeing that in Minnesota, Illinois, New York. That's why you've seen the protests there.
All right, Andrew Arthur, such great perspective. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me, Tara.
Well, the European Union is drafting a list of concessions it believes Russia must make to achieve a long-term peace in Ukraine. EU Foreign Policy Chief Kaja Kallas calls it sustainable peace plan. That involves conditions for Russia to respect. Kallas says these conditions could include demands that Russia return children abducted from Ukraine and limits on the size of the Russian armed forces once the war is over. The plan will be circulated to the member countries in the coming days. President Donald Trump, who has been trying to end the war in Ukraine for months, is also focused on keeping the peace in other parts of the world, including Gaza. Israel's prime minister visits Washington tomorrow, and Vice President J.D. Vance is traveling the globe, visiting Armenia and Azerbaijan, trying to advance a U.S. broker deal aimed at ending the long-term conflict between the two. White House correspondent Owen Jensen reports. Owen.
Tara, good evening to you. Tonight, Vice President J.D. Vance says peace is not made by people who are too focused on the past. Rather, he says peace is made by people who are focused on the future.
In Armenia, before heading to Azerbaijan, Vice President J.D. Vance tells reporters part of striking peace is actually the first step, adding,
part of the keeping the peace is what we're doing today, which is building upon it, making sure that we have the economic interdependence between Armenia and Azerbaijan that's necessary to make the peace deal stick.
Later, the vice president arriving in Azerbaijan, meeting with the Azeri president. In August, Armenia and Azerbaijan inking agreements reaffirming their commitment to signing a peace treaty. It has yet to be ratified.
I was one of the very first to fly along the new Trump Road for international peace and prosperity that will connect the two separate parts of Azerbaijan, and our hope is that that will build the kind of economic and natural resource and critical mineral cooperation that'll make it possible to really make this incredible peace agreement between Azerbaijan and Armenia stick.
Meanwhile, Gaza, where deadly violence continues despite an October ceasefire. Israel says its strikes respond to ceasefire violations. Some elements of an agreement proposed by President Donald Trump aimed at ending the war with Hamas have advanced, including the return of all hostages, and plans for an international stabilization force are emerging. Meanwhile, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is traveling to Washington.
Tomorrow here at the White House, the president will host Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu for a bilateral meeting,
with Iran expected to be the major subject of discussion. The Prime Minister will present President Trump with Israel's principles regarding negotiations with Iran. Today, a top Iranian security official traveled to Oman, which is now mediating talks between Tehran and Washington over the Islamic Republic's nuclear program, aimed at halting a possible American strike.
Now, the U.S. has increased its military presence in the Middle East, including sending the aircraft carrier USS Abraham Lincoln to pressure Iran into an agreement. At the White House, Owen Jensen, EWTN News Nightly.
Owen, thank you. Well, Christians in the Holy Land continue to face serious challenges. The wounds left by the war are still very real, and rebuilding will require more than words. In an exclusive interview with EWTN Cardinal Pier Battista Pizzaballa, the Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem speaks about the reality on the ground. EWTN Vatican journalist Benedict has more.
Abandon? No. Lonely is part of our reality. Abandon? No. There are many activities here, schools, hospitals, and many others. Without the support of the Universal Church, we couldn't do this.
Lonely but not abandoned is how Cardinal Pier Battista Pizzaballa, the Latin Patriarch of Jerusalem, describes the situation of the Church and the Holy Land. As Christian communities continue to shrink and the wounds of war grow deeper, the Cardinal stressed the urgent need for not only political leadership, but for religious leadership that is not driven by anger or a thirst for revenge.
We have to be active with the political authorities and all those who are stakeholders in order to stop all this deterioration, continuous deterioration, of course. But what is important for us to say a clear word about the situation. It is important first of all for all the world, but also important for our community to see that their shepherds, their pastors are present, understand, and they are close.
But beyond words, Cardinal Pizzaballa emphasized, peace and reconciliation must be accompanied by concrete actions and gestures in order to rebuild trust, a trust that has been broken for many.
Life of the Christians here is becoming, day after day, much more complicated. We are spread all over the country, from Israel to Gaza, in Palestine, West Bank, and Jerusalem, of course. And the challenges are connected also with the political situation, which is very problematic, as we don't have to into political now, but is a fact that the political instability, to use beautiful words, but is a disaster.
The situation has led to profound demographic and social changes. Today, the descendants of some of the oldest Christian communities in the world are now forming a shrinking minority in the region. But while they are a minority, Cardinal Pizzaballa stressed, they are alive. And more than that, they are a testimony that Christ is not only encountered in the Holy Land, but in others as well.
Where you meet the resurrected Jesus in the sacraments, as we said, but also when you see people committed to give their life for the other. Especially in this violent situation we're in Gaza, West Bank, in Israel, wherever, you meet a lot of people that despite everything, they are ready to put their life at risk in order to do something for the others, out of love for the others, concern for the others, commitment for the others. These are those that understood the meaning of Easter, giving their life out of love.
In Rome, Benedict for EWTN News Nightly.
The Department of Justice is unredacting multiple names in the Epstein files after pressure from 2 lawmakers.
In a couple of hours, we found 6 men whose names have been redacted who are implicated in the way that the files are presented. At least one is a U.S. citizen, at least one is a foreigner, and the other 3 or 4 have names I'm not sure if they're foreign or U.S.
In which field do they work in? Is it finance, banking, political?
One is pretty high up in a foreign government.
And some are, one of the others is a pretty prominent individual.
Representatives Thomas Massey and Ro Connor read the unredacted documents and spoke to the press last night. They say they spotted 6 names of people who were, quote, likely incriminated. Elsewhere on Capitol Hill, survivors of Epstein's abuse gathered to announce Virginia's law. It is named after Virginia Giuffre, who is one of the most well-known survivors of Epstein's sexual abuse. She died by suicide last year. The legislation aims to remove the time limit for survivors of sexual abuse to file civil claims. They were joined today by Virginia's family.
Virginia's dream was to inspire and empower survivors to come forward. In a world that too often turns away from abuse and pushes it into the shadows, she wanted to bring light.
All right, in other news, a major breakthrough in the search for 84-year-old Nancy Guthrie. Today, the FBI released chilling surveillance footage from the night she vanished. The video shows a masked, armed individual tampering with a doorbell camera outside her Tucson home, despite the camera being disconnected at 1:47 a.m. Investigators recovered the data from back-end systems. The subject appears to be armed with a handgun and is wearing distinctive gloves, a heavy jacket, and a backpack. Authorities are specifically asking the public to study the suspect's gait and clothing. The Commerce Department reports that U.S. retail sales were unexpectedly flat in December, stalling after a hopeful November. Performance across sectors was mixed, while gains were seen in building materials and food services. These were offset by declines in the automotive, furniture, and electronics categories. Core retail sales, which exclude more volatile categories, edged down by 0.1%. Analysts suggest that factors such as severe winter weather and shifting consumer habits contributed to the month's flat performance. We have a lot more still to come on EWTN News Nightly. Retired but still at work, former Archbishop of New York Timothy Dolan gets a new assignment. And the Big Apple is bracing for a major event for Catholic young adults. We speak to organizers of the New York Encounter. Days after retiring from Archbishop of New York City, Cardinal Timothy Dolan has received his next assignment, co-leader of the New York Police Department Chaplains Unit. During the annual State of the NYPD address, the police commissioner announced that Cardinal Dolan will be co-leading the chaplain unit alongside Reverend A.R. Bernard, pastor and founder of the Christian Cultural Center in Brooklyn. She says they will shape the spiritual life of the city that reaches far beyond the pulpit. Cardinal Dolan is one of the speakers featured at this weekend's New York Encounter. This annual gathering stems from a lay Catholic movement known as Communion and Liberation that was founded in the 1950s Italy by a Catholic priest named Father Luigi Giussani. It is a 3-day cultural event that is free and open to everyone. This year's theme is Where Everything is Waiting for You and promises to offer opportunities for education, dialogue, and friendship. Holly Peterson is the Assistant Superintendent for Catholic Schools in the Diocese of Columbus, Ohio, and one of the moderators at the New York Encounter. Could you talk to us a bit about the theme for this year, that is, where everything is waiting for you?
Sure, I'd be happy to. First of all, thank you for this interview. Where everything is waiting for you, where, with the angst of the world we live in, with the challenges that we have in our family life, our work life, it's a place to go where everything literally is waiting for you. We'll have amazing speakers who will be able to address some of the challenges that we have today, whether it be social media or AI or whatnot. But it's a place where everyone is welcome. Everyone is not only welcome but is embraced.
Sounds like one-stop shopping, right? So as one of the moderators, what speakers do you most look forward to?
Yeah, that's a really good question. We have a chock-full agenda this year. So the first speaker of the event, which is Cardinal Pizzaballa, will be joining via internet. So he's done an interview, which I hear is phenomenal, spectacular. I have not yet seen it, so looking forward to that. We also have Bishop Earl Fernandez, who happens to be my boss here in Columbus, Ohio, is interviewing 2 Ukrainian bishops about the situation in Ukraine and what it looks like to live the storm in the stormy situation they're living in. There's a just war theory, really beautiful discussion on just war theory with Greg Reichberg, which I think will be great. Greg Reichberg is a head of the Oslo Peace Research Institute. So those are just 3 on the first day, actually first and second day. So there's a whole list of incredible topics.
Obviously, lots of opportunity for learning. So what do you hope participants will come away with after all is said and done?
I would hope curiosity, that one is spurred to ask questions, deep questions, and not necessarily find answers, but be able to begin to address some of the topics that are discussed with friends and family, but also at home. I really hope people who come, they feel at home at the New York Encounter. There be thousands of people there, but it's all free and it's all everyone will be welcome. So I hope they'll come back again, but I hope it also spurs curiosity and a desire to know more in each one of them, and hopefully to watch these videos, because they'll all be recorded, so they'll be able to watch them later on, maybe again when they get home, share with friends, etc.
All right, sounds like a great time. Holly Peterson, thanks for joining us.
You're very welcome. Thank you for having me.
Well, a historic combination of record heat and a severe snow drought is gripping the American West. Snow cover has vanished across vast areas, leaving the region with only about 1/3 of its normal winter pack. In states like Oregon, Colorado, and Utah, snow levels are at their lowest since record keeping began in the early 80s. Scientists warn that this lack of mountain snow threatens vital year-round water supplies and could ignite an early aggressive wildfire season.
Out here in the West, it's the mountain snowpack that is our primary source of water for agriculture, for anything else. Across almost all of the West, we're in terrible shape right now. 50 to 55% of where we should be.
All right, up next on EWTN News Nightly, theme reveal. The Vatican announces the theme for this upcoming World Day celebration. Today, the Vatican announced the theme for the 6th World Day for Grandparents and the Elderly. Pope Leo XIV has chosen "I Will Never Forget You" as the theme for the next World Day for Grandparents and the Elderly, which will be celebrated on Sunday, July 26th. The Holy Father invites everyone to celebrate the day with the Eucharistic liturgy in the Cathedral Church of each individual diocese. The World Day, instituted by the late Pope Francis in 2021, is celebrated every 4th Sunday of July. It is Tuesday, February the 10th, the feast of Saint Scholastica. According to Pope St. Gregory the Great, Saint Scholastica was the sister of Saint Benedict, and she, like her brother, lived a life completely devoted to God, cut off from the outside world. One night, after spending the day together, Saint Benedict was adamant about returning to his monastery so as not to break his rule. When he denied her pleas to stay, she prayed that God would keep him from leaving. Just then, a giant storm broke out and Benedict was forced to remain. 3 days later, she died in her cell. St. Benedict, while in a state of contemplation, saw her soul ascend to heaven as a dove. St. Scholastica, pray for us. And we thank you for watching tonight. Remember, you can follow us on social media, Facebook, X, and Instagram at EWTN News Nightly. I'm Tara Mergener. Good night and God bless.